Welcome to DevOps Accents, a podcast on everything around DevOps, public cloud, and cloud-native topics, with your hosts, Pablo, Leo, and Kirill.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DevOps Accent, a podcast where we, the co-founders of mkdev, get together to discuss all things around DevOps and cloud-native technologies with our diverse accents. And for today's episode, we have got ourselves a new accent because here with us today is Marcello De Polli, a developer and staff engineer with many years of experience whose career journey began across the ocean in Brazil. Imagine that. Hi, Marcello.
Hey, man. Glad to be here.
Hi, Pablo.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Kirill.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us, Marcelo. We only had two guests on our podcast so far, but I like the idea of making this a tradition. My first question to our guest. So this question is, what's your accent, Marcelo?
My accent is definitely Brazilian.
Is Brazilian or Portuguese?
Brazilian. Yeah, a little bit different.
Yes.
Portuguese like to eat the vowels.
Do other people notice this when you talk to them? Because to me, before even Pablo told me where you're from, I didn't even understand that. So how it sounds, because to me, it sounds like typical European accent. I don't know.
Maybe, okay. I'll take that as a compliment.
But I think that is it.
But I'm definitely Brazilian.
Yeah, if you compare an Argentinian people speaking Spanish or Spaniard or Venezuelan,
Yeah, exactly.
it's the same thing, you know, a Brazilian and a Portuguese.
Yeah.
And it's always when you try to say to a Portuguese, you're from Brazilian. They always say, no, I'm from Portugal.
No.
So it's always super fun. This no, but it's different, you know, the way that they speak.
Yeah.
This Latin way, at least I can feel the difference.
Yeah, me too.
I can imagine some people can be offended by the fact if you misunderstood their accent or something like that.
No, not me. I have no pride in my accent.
Good. So another delicious accent in our collection of DevOps accents. You guys who are following us on social media and subscribe to our mkdev dispatch newsletter probably remember one of my intros to one of the email issues where I talk about the importance of connections and visiting conferences to meet new people, new partners, new clients. And it happened. So we met Marcelo during one of such conferences, and we immediately found ourselves entangled in business relationship, but we never had a chance to explore more than that. So this is a great chance for us to talk and discuss because given your background, it is kind of cultural exchange
Yeah.
from someone who originated from South America and firsthand experienced both worlds, if I can say so. No offense, Australia. I remember you exist. Anyway, we decided to dedicate this episode to that experience of yours. So could you tell us a little bit about how you end up here, where you are today, and what kind of journey that was that brought you from Brazil to Germany?
Right. Yeah, that is the big question, isn't it? I started my career in Brazil, as you said. I was born in Rio, but I moved to São Paulo as soon as I went to college. I went to college in São Paulo, so I've been living in São Paulo for over 20 years. So I consider myself more of a Paulista than a Carioca. And I was always involved with software development in some way or form. I began working for companies outside Brazil pretty early. I think 2004, I began as a front-end engineer doing some work for US companies. And then that pretty much defined my career because I really like being a part of international teams with people like spread out all over the globe. It's a really unique experience. And, you know, I've been doing that from Brazil for a long time. But comes a time when you need to change because everything gets boring after a while, and after a while, I got bored of doing that too, and I really wanted to try something different. But the something different for me was actually working in an office. I know it sounds weird because most people are trying to work remotely
Yeah.
from home, but I was doing that for so long, really, that got the opportunity to move to Munich and work for a company here that had a nice office. And I thought, yeah, let's do it. Cool.
So basically, it was like you just you just scan the internet, LinkedIn for new opportunities, and whoever accepted you, you jumped in and decided to join their team, or you were looking specifically for something in Germany or even Munich in particular.
I was looking for something Europe. I actually tried moving to the US, but it's super hard. And their immigration policy is just insane. So I gave up. It was literally like that. My wife and I decided to consider Europe as a destination during, we had this conversation during a weekend. And then literally on Monday, I got reached out by a recruiter in Europe about positions in Europe. I actually had a choice to go to London or Munich, and I chose Munich, and I am really happy with the decision. I after living in such a huge city as São Paulo for
Mhm.
a long time, I really needed a smaller city, quiet place with nature, safety. You know, if you ask Brazilians, I think are 100% of the responses you're going to get why you moved to Europe are going to mention security, in some way or form, because just being able to do things that in Europe are considered normal, such as walking in the streets alone at night.
Mhm.
These are these are things that are not very, you can't do that lightly in Brazil.
So it's even the issue for someone who was born and raised there, because to me it sounds like a scary tale about how the things are in South America and to scare little children. But in fact, when you are from there, to you it's like, oh, it's an everyday, it's it's a normal thing, and you got accustomed to it naturally.
Yeah, but the thing is, getting accustomed to it is also a symptom of a deeper issue. We shouldn't get used to that kind of thing. And the crime rate issue is a really serious issue. I had close friends that were stabbed,
Oh my God.
and they were just lying. They were just lying in the street, bleeding, without help. He's fine now, by the way. But you know, you shouldn't be used to that kind of thing happening to you.
Do you think this kind of experience influence your, not just your, but other people in IT on their job decisions to work remotely,
Absolutely,
to seek for opportunities?
absolutely. I have no question in my mind. I have no question in my mind. As I said, I every single person from Brazil that I talk to always mentions the crime rate issue when talking about why did you move to Europe. And since we're on the subject, uh, crime rate in the US isn't that good either, especially now it's going up. So I really, really value being able to live in a safe place now.
That's an interesting.
Leo, only one point, because you need to, okay.
Okay, Pablo, go on.
If you've never been in South America or Central America, is when you don't understand really what's an unsecure place mean. Because, I am married with a Venezuelan woman, so, and then because of that, I've been there and many other countries around with her, and when you are traveling in these places is when you really discover what violence means.
Yeah.
And violence means, for example, that during the night in Venezuela, for example, the light of the traffic light is off because you cannot stop with the car in the traffic light, because if you stop, someone is going to appear with a gun. So many times they put to us a gun in the face, and then you go with a cell phone in the car.
Oh yeah.
And they knock the window of the car, a guy on a motorcycle with a gun pointed to you.
Absolutely.
You take the cell phone, you give the cell phone and say bye. So you're not going to fight against that, because so it's a countries where the violence is something insane. But for example, Sao Paulo, and this is something that I want to talk to you, Marcelo, because I think it's super interesting. Sao Paulo is one of the 30, of the 20, or the 40 biggest cities in GDP in the planet Earth.
Yeah.
So we are talking about no a big city, a monster. And we are talking about, I can think that maybe if you compare only with Mexico DF, one of the two biggest cities that are in Central South America, if we don't take account in America and the whole three continents, Central, North, and South, if we don't take account about Canada and we take out USA too. So I think that Sao Paulo and maybe Mexico DF are the two biggest cities. So it's fascinating to, the fact to be an entrepreneur there, to work there, because for sure that the insecurity is there. It's South America, it's how it is. At the end, it's in the blood, and then you are never use the last version of the iPhone on the street. You're always trying to hide all that you have, unless that you have a bodyguard with you. That this happened to us, for example, in Mexico, that we had to go with bodyguard, not for us, for friend of us. So all these kind of themes, at the end is crazy, but it's really spectacular too, not to be an entrepreneur there.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, but being an entrepreneur in Sao Paulo is, surprisingly good. I mean, surprisingly, because the startup ecosystem is really advanced, and you have a whole network of investors, advisors, mentors, engineers, designers, anything you can possibly think of. The overall mindset is, I would say, advanced in the sense that those people that are involved with startups, they're usually very prepared. They're usually very familiar with everything that's involved, and with creating a new product, reaching product market fit, agile development. Those kinds of things that you need to be aware of when creating a company. You can get a lot of support over there. I actually began getting involved with startups by doing a startup acceleration program, a really quick one. It's like a mixture of a school and a accelerating program called Startup Farm. That was in 2011. Right at the beginning, when I was trying to be a startup founder, I could already see that we had a whole ecosystem, with a lot of good people. So yeah, that was pretty good, in spite of the violence.
Even the market in Brazil is different to the market in Europe, no?
Yeah.
Because I can imagine, for example, you see here, all these people with this new iPhone 13, iPhone 14, iPhone 15, all these new smartphone. And for example, I say that because of people that I know in Venezuela. When they create an app for the mobile, they cannot think in an iPhone. They have to think in the old version of Android.
Yeah.
Because most of the people is using those very bad cell phone.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that when you do something in Africa, at the end, you cannot think in the latest version of the iPhone 15 and going to do something thinking on that. You need to think in a very old, but at least old version of Android, and everything needs to be working because most of the people is working in Android.
Yeah, it's the same thing in Brazil. Most of the mobile users, are Android users. And I if I'm not wrong, iOS is growing in market share, but Android is still huge. And but one thing that's important to say is that Brazilians are very curious, and they're very technology. They have a big affinity with technology. They're really anxious to try new things. and create accounts on every new service. And you can also see that by the amount of local services that exist in Brazil. We have a lot of local companies, like, for example, Mercado Livre, which is, by the way, from Argentina.
Yes.
Right.
And this is something good to talk about this company because
Exactly.
it's Amazon, but in South American way.
Exactly. Amazon is going to have a hard time
Yes.
getting into Brazil because of Mercado Livre, because everybody buys. I used to buy things every day in Mercado Livre, and the reason they're so good is that they invested billions in logistics. So by the time Amazon decided to even pay attention to the Brazilian market, Mercado Livre already had invested in logistics, and they were able to deliver the next day, right? Sometimes the same day. So I could go on and on about the local companies and the local software. One important thing is that these local software companies are good. The user experience is good. Customer service is good. So in general, they're much more advanced. It's a much more advanced ecosystem than in Europe.
I even heard Brazil is a unique country because not just people but government adopted a lot of IT services, and you can have a lot of things you can do, appointments, tax payments using a simple WhatsApp application, if I'm not mistaken, and that's one of the reasons why WhatsApp is so popular on Brazil, and other messengers are having a rough time trying to enter this market because everybody uses WhatsApp. Not because it's very convenient to chat using WhatsApp. They have a lot of downsides, but because WhatsApp is so well integrated in everyday life of typical Brazilian person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of ecosystems that exist inside of its own ecosystem, and it's almost like an entire different world in terms of how we communicate and how we work using international platforms. But that's what you describe, like we have our own.
Yeah.
In Europe we will use Amazon because why not? And UPS delivery, it's everywhere. In Europe, USA, everybody uses UPS. But in Brazil, it's your unique environment, and it's kind of different experience if you try to launch a new product there, if you are not Brazilian yourself. You had your own experience trying to launch a startup and trying to do that. Do you have, I don't know, insights of how it works, what you should take into account when you're trying to do that, and how it's different from what we are doing here in Europe or in USA?
I wish I had more data about Europe. I have a little bit of data about the startup environment in here.
Well, it shouldn't be like a strict data, like a marketing data for people to analyze in the future.
No, when I say data, I mean
Experience.
personal. Yeah, when I say data, I mean personal data. Yeah, one thing, for instance, that people that can be very surprising about trying to do that in Brazil is that money is not a problem, right? So that pretty much goes against your expectations because it's a poor country, and then people also have this idea that you need money to start a company, but really that was never a problem, at least for me. All the times that I tried to have a startup in Brazil, I had people begging me to take their money, literally, and because there are so many investors and there are really a lot of people that really want to get into this, and these people pretty much don't know what they're doing, and they're really focused on tech startups. They're not just investors that work on different area, and they want to try their hand there. The first time I tried to do a startup was that acceleration program I mentioned. That was, it feels like so long ago, but it was in 2011. It was a platform for publishers to manage their ebook catalog. And the biggest problem that publishers were having is that ebooks were growing and they were afraid it was going to eat into their business, eat into their catalog, and they had no idea how to basically migrate from a paper-based catalog to a digital catalog. This is actually still a problem. This hasn't been solved.
Mm-hmm.
But sadly, I wasn't going to be the one to fix that problem, because even though we got to a pretty good point regarding making good relationships with publishing companies, and we had a lot of partnerships, but I had the company, the startup had internal problems between the founders. So I had a fight with my co-founder, and sadly, this is one of the biggest reasons why startups fail, and we eventually decided to give up.
I have a small question. Those partners and publishers you're talking about, were they from Brazil, or they were like international publishers who already was?
100% local, 100% from Brazil.
Yeah, that's another point. When you start a startup in Brazil, like what's your first target? Because I can imagine when we work in Europe, like especially SaaS products are originally targeted international, at least for mainland Europe. Right, because it's by default there are not so many local things that you can focus on and try to create a startup that focuses on local things. But when in Brazil, it's a different thing. And was it by default?
But think the market, Leo, that you have 200 millions in Brazil.
Yeah, 200 million. Yeah.
Yes, and that's another point. Like so many people, and so many large country, large market, and was it your default idea to only target local market? It's the common thing in Brazil.
Yeah, no, you really want to go global. I mean, if the thing that you really want to go for with a startup is you really want to go global. You really want to address a global problem, right? You really want to go for the biggest market you possibly can. And in that case, the publishing business, it's also a global problem that's faced by publishers everywhere. But what people do, and this is a pretty interesting approach, is you launch, talking about Brazilian founders, is you usually launch a product locally for the Brazilian market, and you use that experience as a trial run to improve your product, improve your processes, improve your experience, and then you go global. That's what the founders of Brex did. They're a really interesting company. They're based in the US. They have a credit card, a corporate credit card to allow companies to have easy credit, right? To basically do everything you need to start a company, and you can just open your startup using a credit card as your main credit line. It's an amazing company. But the same founders, they're all from Brazil. They already had previous experience with a payment platform in Brazil that was 100% local, actually also a pretty good payment platform. And they used that experience and to jumpstart their new venture, with a more global audience. So this is something that's a pretty interesting approach. You launch in Brazil, taking advantage of the fact that you have a good environment and a pretty advanced consumer market as well.
The good thing that you have in these huge countries like, I don't know, Brazil, Russia, USA, this country with more than 80, 100 million, is that even if you are not able to expand your company, because imagine that you are a consultancy company like we are here in mkdev, and we only have customers in a huge country with 200 millions. The good thing is, okay, a relative innovative country. The good thing is that, for example, you're in a startup and you're able to create a B2C application, and I'm not talking about 200 million, but if you have 2 millions, you have more than what you can expect. And I'm talking about only 2 millions, that is only 1% of the population. Imagine whatever food delivery. I tell you the typical apps that all of us we have in the cell phone, the typical app for a taxi or for a motorcycle, because in South America, the people normally they hire a motorcycle. You don't hire a car, but okay, you can hire whatever these things. So, all these kind of tools that you can have today. So if you're able to get 2 millions, I cannot imagine how hard it is to get 2 millions of customers in Europe, because in Europe, if you're in Spain, it's in Spanish. In Portugal, Portuguese. You go to France, now it's French. Okay, in the middle Andorra, they speak Catalan, but okay, they understand French and Spanish. If you go to Italy, you go Italian. Germany, German. You go to Austria, okay, it's German. But if you go to Slovakia, you just start to check the amount of different legislations, the amount of different languages. And now you're in Brazil, 200 millions, it's the same country.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine that many companies, they decide, wow, how hard could it be for us to go to Europe? Because Europe is a bit a nightmare. So maybe I can go to USA, because all of us, we know that when you're in South America, you never think in Europe.
Yeah.
You think up. You think in USA. You're never thinking in Europe normally.
Yeah.
So when you want to increase, grow, or you want to think for a venture capital, you want a VC, you say, okay, I'm going to check in the American venture capital. I don't want to check in the Europeans, because at the end it's normal.
There are no challenges that we couldn't overcome. Whether it is immediate infrastructure problems or planning a future project, we won't simply answer your questions. We become a part of your team to help you complete the mission. Our solutions consider the interests of your business and the combined expertise of the industry, as our staff is made up of more than a dozen experts in different areas who share decades of field-tested experience and knowledge with you.
I think Brex is a good example of like a successful company that expanded to other markets, other countries, because Brex is a fintech company. And it's more or less universal thing in regardless where you live, as long as you have access to internet and you pay with Visa and MasterCard. But what you are saying about, Pablo, is startups or companies that have to communicate or operate with people in one another, where your clients should be locals from here. Your clients are local on the country where you are contacting to them, or even partners, suppliers, or something like that. And this is a case where you have to take into account the differences, cultural differences between lands, between countries, where you live and where you came from. And this is very important. But there are a lot of companies, there are a lot of startups that discard this idea, and at the same time, they try to market their tool or their application globally, like it's without taking into account cultural differences. And I can't give you an example from top of my head of that, but I remember us trying to apply some services to that we tried to use, we successfully used in one market, but then we tried to apply something to a different market, and then you have to make a whole new research on how people even call this kind of service, because people won't even find you when they Google something or similar servers, because they use completely different words for that. And this is something that you have to take into account. And if you try to market, for example, into Italian markets, as something that you successfully sell to Spanish people, and simply translating with Google how your services would call in Italian won't work, because for Italians there is a completely different thing for that, and they call it differently, and they even consume it differently. And you won't succeed if you're not going to make a whole new research. But for Brex, it was easier, because we are already familiar with this concept of payment, and everybody use it.
Exactly. Yeah, they were already familiar with payments. They also their product had a big appeal to other startups as well. So, and they were accelerated by Y Combinator. So they, as soon as they arrived in the US, they already had access to this community of that they call Y Combinator alumni, right? So also other startups were really interested in trying out their product.
And one question, Marcelo, because you are the co-founder of LiveDApp, okay, or co-founder or ex-co-founder.
Yeah.
But okay, you were one of the person who created. What, for example, in this case, what technology you were doing, what this application what was doing, how hard it was, for example, for you to find in mine, because I can discover here that you were using GraphQL, so and PostgreSQL. What kind of technology you were doing, or why GraphQL? What kind of themes you were doing there with the data?
Yeah. So LiveDub was my second attempt, and also a failure. I mean, it's not completely a failure. I can tell the story. So LiveDub was something that a friend and I started in 2018. It's a mobile app focused in solving a very real problem. It's the problem that music bands cannot play together remotely, right? So if you have a band, it's very, very hard to rehearse or just play together in any way at a distance, right? You can't play together when every single member of the band is in a different place. That solution doesn't exist yet. So we really wanted to fix that, and also kind of drawing on both our experiences with music, and it was a really exciting product to work on. And we had a mobile development team located in the south of Brazil, in a different city, in Curitiba. And we had a really good Android guy, really good iOS guy. And GraphQL was actually my choice. I was doing the backend, and I was the server guy. And I thought GraphQL was going to be a good choice for it. Just because, for mobile apps, it's very easy to, in GraphQL, render the whole page with a single request, instead of doing multiple requests. So yeah, that was LiveDub. And we also had a great designer working with us. But eventually, what happened is we realized this problem was going to be much harder to fix than we imagined, And I had to make a choice. We either would take in a big investment, like VC level of money, and then try to really do it, or no. And at the end of the day, I didn't want to do that because it would be a really high risk proposal, a really high risk thing to do. It's a very, very unexplored territory, and I don't know, maybe it's a personality thing. I didn't want to take that big of a risk trying to fix a problem that no one else did with other people's money I just, I got cold feet at the last minute. But my partner and the designer and the developers, they kind of continue with the product. I left, and the app still exists, and they're trying to make it work like on the back burner, right? They're not focusing on it anymore. My former partner Rico was also in another company at the same time. This other company is called Score, and it's a pretty interesting company. It's a company in the area of knowledge management and education, more with a corporate focus. And I actually helped them get started by programming their first prototype. So I did their first prototype, but at the time I didn't join the team. So they went on and they became really successful. Of course, the only one I didn't join became successful. And they sold the company to Universo Online, the biggest web portal in Latin America. So, yeah, I mean, you can eventually do that. But I decided to come to Europe instead.
Yes, because at the end, many times people create companies only with the idea to sell the company, no? So
yeah, of course. No, you want to give your investors some kind of exit, right? But this is actually a limitation of the Brazilian market and startup ecosystem. It's still not mature enough to really offer you a realistic possibility of an exit, like either selling the company to another company or making an making an IPO. It's really hard to do that. Really, really hard. My partner with Score, they did a really good job being able to sell to Universal Online, but there are also thousands of companies that can't find an exit like that. And so this is actually one of the biggest limitations of the local market. It's still hard to sell the company or do IPO.
Do you have US companies trying to acquire companies in Brazil often?
I think Brazil is a market that's more interesting for if you're already there, right? If you were born there, because I've been here saying how advanced it is, but I didn't say the downsides. Regulation is really hard. The tax system is horrible. Brazil has the most complex tax system and in the world. This is no joke. So all of this, and also you have, in addition to that, you have an environment where you don't have established rules and established laws that give you the security as an investor that the economy is going to be stable for a long time. You still have that feeling that anything can happen at every single time, and the rules can change, and that's not good for business. So for that reason, Brazil is, sorry to say that it's becoming less and less interesting, I think, for international investors, and could be much better. I think it could be much more interesting for people on the outside. But sadly, I think we need to work on those issues, first.
I can talk from my experience in Venezuela that is what you says, you can make money, but this is an internal money.
Exactly.
Because at the end it's difficult later on because of everything. And even, for example, in Venezuela, you have a problem with their own money that you cannot change the money that you have in Venezuela. So you don't have a national coin, you're using dollars. So, but you cannot go to the bank and have, all this complexity thing. But for me, what I discovered in Venezuela is that the most complex thing is next. And I saw that in other countries in South Central America, not only in Venezuela. And it's the same way that the family is something so important for the people, because when you have a lunch, it's not only a lunch with your brother. You have a lunch with 25 people, and then other one appear, and then another one, and then you end up in why there are so many people here. I wanted to have a simple lunch. At the end, what happened is that you are living in a circle, and for example, you're living in a 20 million city, and you say, wow, it's impossible that the people meet each other or know each other. But at the end, you're living in circles.
Yeah.
So the people that is in a social class are living in this circle because they go to the same schools, all they go to the same clubs, because there is something that there is no in Europe, are the clubs, the social clubs. And in the club, you have a swimming pool, and then, for example, you go to the Italian club, or the Switzerland club, or the Portuguese club, or in Brazil, the Spanish club, in Sao Paulo, these kind of clubs that you go to, Galician club, and the La Hermandad Gallega, this typical in all the cities around South America. And in these places, you know a lot of people. And maybe there are 1,000, 2,000 people in this place, and you went to the same school, and you went to the same university, and between all of you, you make a network. And this network is so hard to get when you're from outside that you're coming from USA, you're coming from Europe, you're coming from whatever place, and you appear in South America, Central America, North America, Mexico, I mean. So, and then it's who you are, because you can go and put money, but you are going to be without this network. And this is super important because
exactly.
Because with networks are nothing.
No, man, you're touching on a very, very real issue here, because the most important thing you can have is your network. I don't think, even in the US, after I started working with companies in the US, every job I got from US companies was always by recommendation. Always, never because I applied to a position. That's not that's not the main way to hire people, contrary to what people may think. It's all by recommendation. And when you move to another country, you just reset your network. You have no network anymore. And it's so hard. This is the hardest thing for me, especially because I'm used to having a pretty big network in Brazil and the US. This is really hard.
You moved to Europe in post-COVID era, basically 2021.
Yeah.
It's like in the middle of pandemic, or it was starting to wear off already. And I can imagine it was a kind of challenge to you, because when you come from environment where network and connection means so much, and then you move to Europe immediately after COVID, and the time and the place where people are scared to get personal to each other, to meet in public, and that's the time when it's a new trend arrived, working from home rather than in office. And here you are wanting to work in office, coming to Europe. Like, how was that to you?
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting adventure, I would say. Yeah, it's a pretty big life change. I'm not gonna deny, it's a pretty big life change. But also, it has a lot to do with the quality of life. For instance, and it has a lot to do with the pandemic, as you said. Like, my wife and I spent 2 years practically locked up in the apartment. After going through that, we're just like, I want to do something else. I want to live somewhere else. I want to do something different, And Munich and Bavaria, in general, are places where people live outside a lot. They are always moving around. They're always doing hiking somewhere near Bavaria. They're always going to a lake, going to a park.
Kirill can confirm.
This lifestyle, which is basically the opposite of what I had, also attracted me. It's so different to live in a place where the outside is inviting you, because it's beautiful, because it's clean, because it's safe as well. And all of this is the opposite of what I had. In Sao Paulo, people pretty much also have a history of staying home, staying locked up, isolated.
So Sao Paulo self-isolated before it became a trend.
Exactly, before it was cool. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a big life change, not gonna deny. But when I look out my window and I see squirrels and birds, I'm kind of reminded of why I did this. you know.
And this is a good point. Did you plan to go back to Sao Paulo at some point, or
No way, absolutely not. Just to visit.
so you want to be a German or a Bavarian?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I want to be a German, but maybe I'm now in that limbo where I'm nothing, you know. I don't have a nationality anymore.
That's the best kind of nationalities when they don't have one.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, for example, you're working in BetterDoc. But okay, one year ago, 2 years ago, for how long are you working in?
Oh no, no, I've been at BetterDoc for 4 months. Yeah, 4 months.
But okay, do you plan to, okay, after the time that you're going to be in whatever company, because, and I don't want to any of your big boss is telling anything or hear anything. So, after a long time and after everything is super successful, do you plan to create a new startup in Germany? Did you ever think about that?
Well, here's the thing. Both times when I created my 2 startups, I lost all my money doing that because let's say I'm a bit more adventurous than I probably should be, you know, and I don't want to do that again. So maybe I'll start something, you know, but I'm definitely not gonna drop everything and believe in an idea and try to create a company with my savings. I did that twice, and I'm not going to do that again. If I do it, it's going to have to be something probably smaller problem that I can solve, on my free time, something like that. I'm probably not going to be able to get away from it for too long. I really like it.
Be an entrepreneur is okay. There is upside and downside for sure. When you create something, it's your little kid, and I have 2 real. No, okay. I have many fails too, but okay. And many others that are not a fail, and I'm happy of everyone because you always learn. And I think it's always good, but this sensation that you have when you're creating something is not the same that when you are working in the company of others.
It's not the same.
Even when you are, now I start working like the guy who cleaned the floor, and now I am the guy who are pressing the button in the elevator. Oh, now I'm the manager of the hotel, and now I am the CTO, and now I'm the CEO of the company. Even if you are jumping, we need to differentiate between who owns and who manages a company, and when you own a part of a company and at the same time you create a company, is something super. This excitement is completely different, at least to me, to the excitement that you have when when you work for the company of others. Because when you work for the company of others, it's like, in my case for sure, it's like, okay, here I am, so I'm giving you myself. But it's different because when something is yours, you're giving yourself 2 or 3 times per day. So and you put all the passion and all the themes. And I think that, for example, every time that I have a fail, I always think, okay, which one is going to be the next one, no? Because always there will be a new one. I cannot imagine, with my 40-something years and says, okay, that's all. This is going to be the last one. So because I have a plan, and this plan is going to work, and the plan is continue with the plan forever, because there is no stop for this plan. So, but in my opinion, I think that when you're an entrepreneur, you always have these little butterflies in your stomach that is telling to you, you need to try and try and try.
You're so right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, but as you said, it's different, right? It's so different from working for a company. But at the same time, I agree with everything you said. Trying to create something is a sensation that you can't have any other form. But at the same time, you need to be ready for the ups and downs and the anxiety. And I'm not sure if I'm emotionally mature enough for that. the the anxiety is too big. It's pretty big, and Yeah, in that sense, sometimes.
And what kind of advice, I'm sorry, Leo, because I want to make this question because I think it's super important. What kind of advice do you want to give to a person who wants to, imagine that some person with 20, 25, 30, or even 50 or 60, whatever. But I tell in 20s because it's when you start the first time always normally. With your 20s, what kind of advice you can give to this person after what you consider that I am not consider that to your fails? That for me is not a fail because what you are is part of what you were. So if it's not because of these two, what you call fails, you were not here, and you are here talking with us. So what kind of advice you can give to these people that imagine that they are today here, they want to start?
I think a really big thing to say is that you have to become a good programmer first. Don't believe the people who tell you that the idea is the most important part. It's not. The idea is worth nothing. It's all about your capacity to execute, your ability to ship software. This is the most important thing. So I would say, don't worry about being a founder or entrepreneur. Worry about being a really good engineer first, because this is the most important thing. It's even funny because this goes for me and for a lot of people that I know that are experienced engineers. We're all receiving these offers all the time from entrepreneurs that have this amazing idea. It's great, it's perfect. It only needs someone to build it. So we really, this is almost on a daily basis. We hear stories like that, and it's hard because you're going to tell them you think you have something because you have an idea. You don't. It's really, it's not worth as much as you think.
I cannot agree more.
Yeah, worry about being a good programmer first.
In a paper, everything could be painted.
Exactly.
It's true. There is a Spanish expression. I don't know how to say in English that that you can put everything in a paper,
Yeah.
but really, if you are not able to move everything that is in a paper to the real world, is when you discover that, okay, come on, this idea that was so simple here.
Yeah.
Is not.
By the way, speaking about moving ideas from paper to real world, how would you compare developers and DevOps engineers that you had to work while being in South America to the ones that you are working today? Is there a difference, or it's a common trope that everybody hires the cheapest manpower from across the ocean, something like that?
Yeah, the trope that people hire the cheapest manpower from across the ocean is true to an extent. In my case, whenever I worked with U.S. companies, I was always treated as part of the team. I had great experience, doing that. No problems with me at all. You also asked an interesting question, which is the difference in development culture between Europe and Brazil, right? And this is a little bit tough because I think right now at my current company at BetterDoc, I think I was really lucky. I think I'm in a really good spot because I got lucky to work with someone who is really experienced with startups, and my boss is someone who has successfully taken a company all the way from a startup to the IPO. So it's a different environment, and I'm lucky to work with really good people. And here comes the but. But outside of that, I really feel that the startup culture as a whole is less. I'm not going to say startup culture. The culture, the development culture, the engineering culture, is, this is just my impression. Okay, you can feel free to knock me out as much as you want, but this has been my personal experience. The development culture, the engineering culture that I found in Germany was a little bit maybe dominated by a corporate culture where It doesn't really matter if you're a fantastic engineer or not. You're just kind of trying to kind of keep your job, do the least amount of work you can, that kind of mindset that I'm pretty sure you all of you know what I'm talking about. I found that mindset way more here than in Brazil. I have no idea why. I have no idea what's the reason behind it.
That's an interesting observation. I can assume people like the more wealthy a country, the more people are tend to take care of their time, how they distribute their work time and free time, this life work balance, rather than if a country is less wealthy, and people tend to consider their own time more loose, okay, and they prefer to work a little bit more to earn more, and they just get used to I don't know, spend time on trying to earn a little bit more when they need that, rather than when you live in a great country, when a wealth country, and you know that when you work you are basically secured, you know that there is a stability, so you can allow yourself to work from A to B and not trying to do more than your service level agreement dictates, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think people have a different relationship with work uh, in different countries, of course. But I think being in this position in Germany, I was able to observe firsthand how different this relationship is in Germany in comparison to Brazil. One thing that people say about Brazilians is that we are quote unquote hardworking. Brazilians are hardworking. You hear that a lot, but I'm not sure if hardworking is the best way to describe it. One thing I think Brazilians think about work in terms of relationships, right? My work is a direct consequence of my relationship with the people in my team. If someone in my team needs me to do something and this is important for them, it's more or less automatically going to be important for me. Now the Germans think in a completely different way. Germans think like this: this is my job. I only go this far.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going that far because that's not my job. Okay, this is where I stop, and they only go that far. It doesn't matter if the whole company needs it. It doesn't matter if your whole team is going to be better because of it. You are only going to go that far. And that leads to a lessened sense of ownership, because everybody is just trying to do their job according to their own understanding of their job.
Mm-hmm.
But those agreements are never perfect. At the end of the day, you really need to accomplish things as a team. And sometimes that may need, people to do slightly different things from what they expected, and you're probably going to find out that Brazilians are always going to be up for it because of, I don't know, I don't think it's an economic reason. I think it's a 100% cultural thing, but Germans, they're not up for it.
My first experience with Germans, it was in Munich, in Amadeus, and I remember the point that when the time, because I coming from a country that might just start to work at 8 o'clock and they're telling to you that you need to leave at 5, and it's 7 and you're still in the office, and it's 8 and you're still in the office. And I remember this moment when it was 4 and everyone left the company.
Yeah.
And it was something like looking to everywhere because
what's going on? Is there an earthquake?
Yes, because I was thinking that something was happening with the, I don't know, whatever What are the things? Maybe are testing the fire alarm or something. Really, I did not understand that. And everyone left. And the second day, the same. And then you are used to stay in the office until 6, 7.
Yeah.
And the third day, fourth day, I'm from Spain for sure. You are leaving, I'm living with you. So why am I going to be here? And you are leaving. But then you are leaving and you are thinking when you are leaving, wow, I live in and I did not do all that I have to do. Or I live in and they are living because they do the job and the job is over and there is a cut of time. But in Spain, the people is not leaving because something even worse. The people is not leaving because they are telling, okay, the boss is there. And if you are leaving, he or she is going to see you. And then he or she is going to open the notebook, is going to put an X. And then next time, if I had to fire someone, you're going to be the first one. So
Exactly.
And it's a panic culture of work, because you're working with panic and it's crazy. But a little point, only talking about the culture of entrepreneur or no. For example, I see that, for example, in Spain, the people, they doesn't like to be entrepreneur. They don't like to make companies. There are a lot of people who make companies. There are places, like, for example, Barcelona, there are a lot of startups. But it's not something normal. But there are very, very good startups, but in places where the government or the culture help. But for example, when you go to South America, I can see that everyone is a startup. Everyone, because you are walking on the street and there is a guy selling to you napkins because he or she has no money. And then everyone is doing something to make money because there is no government behind helping you. There is nothing. So, and unless you are able to make yourself an entrepreneur, you're not able to do a thing. So it's crazy, this way to be an entrepreneur because you're forced to be.
Yeah, exactly. And just makes you think how successful the whole country could be if it was easier to be an entrepreneur. If it wasn't so hard, because it's really, really hard, from the point of view of what you need to do, the laws and regulations. You basically get treated like, company owner in Brazil is usually, you feel like you're a criminal until proven otherwise. Right? Nobody, I mean this from the point of view of the government. You need to go through all sorts of regulatory hoops just to survive, and fill out also a lot of crazy forms and stuff like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Pablo. I mean, it's exactly the same in Brazil. Yeah, this is really a part of the culture.
I think the fact that you had to work and experience so different environments gives you a benefit, and a benefit over other people who only worked in one environment, who only worked with European people, and you had to work from different cultures and understand so many different people's differences in approaches. And this gives you, in my opinion, a really good benefit that will allow you to create something big in the future.
I hope so.
Anyway, thank you for sharing this with us. It was very entertaining, very interesting to learn about all of this, many of which I didn't know. I think a lot of people are going to disagree with us regarding how we treat Germans.
I think so.
Please don't take this personally, but if you do, send us a message on comments below or in the email for those who are subscribed to our mkdev dispatch newsletter. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for joining us, guys. And see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye, guys. Thank you for having me.
See you.
The cloud tech industry is evolving so fast. Do you keep up with it by improving your skills or upskilling your team? At mkdev, we offer a variety of workshops for just that, from the basics to expert knowledge. Before delivering our workshops and training sessions, we carry out a detailed assessment of each participant. To make sure the workshop is helpful for you and your team, we will add more content to it or throw out what you already know. Or we create a custom workshop specifically for the needs of your team and the specifics of your project.